Okay, welcome back to part two of How is God's Son the Great High Priest? So, beginning in chapter 5, verse 1, we read, For every high priest taken from among men is ordained from men in things pertaining to God, that he may offer both gifts and sacrifices for sins. So, this is the next point that makes the Messiah, that makes God's Son, that makes Yeshua a great high priest. He was ordained for men, okay, to the things pertaining to God. And he was able to offer gifts and sacrifices. So for sin. So what in this case is the actual sacrifice, the gift that he's presenting, a gift to the Most High of an undefiled life, and the sacrifice being his own actual blood. So he qualifies for this greatness, for this high priest position because of these two factors. Verse 2, who can have compassion on the ignorant and on them that are out of the way, for that he himself also is compassed with infirmity. So, another point, being able to look on a crowd and see them as being lost, hurt, harassed by all the devils and by Satan himself in this world, and able to bring them in. He just sees them as lost sheep, as being ignorant, oblivious to the truth. They just need to know that truth. And those who are out of the way, who may have deliberately chosen a bad pathway, but he's able to have that compassion for both groups because he has been compassed or has been surrounded by the same weaknesses that we've had. Verse 3, and by reason hereof he ought, as for the people, so also for himself, to offer for sins. Okay, so pretty much what we've been saying so far, he is able to offer himself because of his being compassed by infirmities. He's qualified. He's on the level, if you will, to be in the running to be an offer for sins. Verse 4, and no man taketh this honor to himself, but he that is called of God, as was Aaron. So again, another similarity, just like the high priest on earth, this heavenly high priest that is ordained in Yeshua, the anointed one through the Messiah, he also was called by the Most High, called by the Father to be a priest. There's no trying to do this on his own, or like, I'm going to do this and set himself up, as so many men do. It was nothing about pride. It was him accepting the calling of the Father, because it's a challenging calling, and him obliging and doing the will of the Father and the will of the Father only, even to the cross and death. Verse 5, so also Christ glorified not himself to be made an high priest, but he that said unto him, Thou art my son, today I have begotten thee. So, like literally what we were talking about just a moment ago. There's no glorification. There's no want to war out. No, I want this position. So, as so many people have done in the past, want to pronounce this blessing upon themselves. But he allowed the Father to say that you're my son and I have begotten you. No inward voices, no voices of men who are compassed with infirmities as well. But the Father, who is perfect, is the one who anointed him as son and as high priest. Verse 6, as he said also in another place, Thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. So Melchizedek, we'll talk about that a little bit later on, but this is a righteous priesthood that predated the Aaronic priesthood. So essentially, what the Messiah, is going underneath, or the priesthood is going underneath, is something that is pre-Israel, if you will, that spans into eternity. When you look at other sources, he's becoming a king of peace. Anyway, we'll dwell on this a little bit more later on, but let's go into verse 7. When the days of his flesh, when he had offered up prayers and supplication with strong crying and tears unto him that was able to save him from death, and was heard and that he feared. So talking about the Messiah. Verse 8, though he were a son, yet learned he obedience by the things which he suffered. So he's after the order of Melchizedek, but while in the flesh, he offered up prayers, supplication to the Father, who was able to bring him back from death or save him from death. And he actually look at right here and was heard, and that he feared. So he actually feared the Father more than his own desire. And despite his status of being a son, he still learned to be completely obedient and to learn how to suffer through the pain so that he can know the joy of salvation, the joy of being on the other side of receiving everything. It just magnified that sensation all the more and bring him to be that much more appreciative of what his future will now hold for all times and to the end of times, for all eternity, since there is no end of time. Verse 9, and being made perfect, he became the author of eternal salvation unto all them that obey him. So this is key right here, to all them that obey him. So many times people walk away with the impression, oh, I'm just saved by grace and I have nothing that I need to do. No. Just like he had to endure and be made perfect through his suffering, we likewise have to be made perfect through our suffering. And he provides eternal salvation unto them that are willing to obey and go through the same process as he did. He tells us that in another place that no student is greater than his master or teacher, to paraphrase. So if no one's greater than their teacher, then that means that we have to do the same thing as our teacher, and it's good enough for us to be like our teacher. Okay, to be as our teacher, which means we're looking and taking notes. How did he live? What did he say in this situation? How did he respond in that? Would he do this on a daily basis? Looking at those type of concerns or matter that surrounded his life. Finally, verse 10, called of God and high priest after the order of Melchizedek. So again, just another reiteration that before the Aaronic priesthood was, Messiah was called after the order of Melchizedek, which was, when you study out the records, you find out that Melchizedek was Shem, one of the sons of Noah that came off of the boat and had survived the flood. And this same Melchizedek, the same Shem, was the one that eventually would talk to Abraham, and Abraham would give a tenth of his spoils, a tenth of his wealth to this high priest who is Shem. But again, we'll delve into that a little bit more, but this gives you a little bit of a foretaste of what's to come. Anyway, may this be a blessing to you.